We are the Theatre and Health Education Trust crew, and we're here to talk about what we know about sexual health. I'm Nina, and I've been working with theatre for 3-4 years now. I came into it through theatre, so all the sexual health stuff was real new to me, but I've since done like certificates and this and that and gone to heaps of conferences, and I love it. There's so much to learn about the world of sexual health.
I'm John, and I'm soon to be joining the Theatre Sexwise tour, and I'm very excited for all the things that I will be learning, both on tour and in the creation of the show with these guys.
Kia ora, I'm Talia. I've been with theatre for 5 years. Yeah. First 2, I was an actor and I got to tour and facilitate these topics with young people around Aotearoa. And then this is my 3rd year being a co-director, which means I don't get to go on tour, which is kind of sick, but I do get to help the actors create the content and figure out how to have those conversations with young people when they go out there.
Kia ora, talofa, I'm Jake. I've been with Sexwise for 5 years. Started off as a touring actor, and now I'm one of the co-directors.
My thing that I found interesting was going...
No.
I know, so press.
Okay, what's your thing?
Thank you for asking. I knew you'd get a kick out of that. My thing that I found interesting was how, like, every young person seems to know that AIDS exists as a concept, and they call it AIDS as well, but they have no clue how it links in with HIV or what HIV is or anything about it.
Yeah, true.
You know, like, I think the misinformation is so, like, rife with young people, and so, like, yeah, to be able to, like, teach them that AIDS is the progression of HIV, which is the virus, and then, like, trying to teach them that it's not curable, but it's treatable, and talking about PrEP and PEP and all of those sorts of things, I found super interesting.
Yeah, I reckon that's like the coolest thing about what we do is, like, because these conversations aren't had enough, people know about the stuff. Yeah. But they don't actually know anything about the stuff. Yeah. And so I feel like at the moment it's a little secret mission to, like, unlock all the knowledge of sexual health, but it should be common knowledge. So that's my favorite part, is, like, making it become common knowledge. And then in that way it's less scary. Yeah. And less like a myth.
Yeah, or like just being able to teach that there is a medication that you can take, and if your HIV viral load is undetectable, therefore it can't be transmissible. Is that, like, the word? Yeah. It can't. Like, it's U equals U is the whole thing, and I just find that campaign so cool. It's like incredible medicine, and I wish that more people knew that that's the reality of having HIV in Aotearoa, and it's not the images that we've seen from the 80s and that we've grown up with our parents telling us. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I like what you're saying about the aspect of, like, it is just a process-based thing, and, like, but the first step of getting there is to make it everyday conversation, and, like, that's what's so cool about theatre and things like that, because really, like, the first steps can take place until you aren't hyping it and freaking out about the rumours or the myths.
Yeah. Okay, who's things next? Ready?
Okay.
Gang, no more. Oh, between you two.
All yours.
That's you. You're not
When it goes, right?
No. I'm happy to talk about my thing, actually, because I'm really passionate about my thing.
Yeah, you go shoot.
My thing is HPV. Genital warts. Everyone knows about genital warts, but they don't know about genital warts. My favourite fun fact about HPV or genital warts is that it's not actually a big wart on your genitals. It's actually inside the vagina or the anus or on the cervix. And it's flesh coloured and it's painless. So the only way, not the only way, but one of the most common ways to know if you have them is to get a check and get it seen by a professional, and then they can be like, you got HPV. Otherwise, they don't have a lot of symptoms.
I think the coolest thing that I love about HPV is that we actually have a vaccine for it. Like how many, I don't think there's any other STIs that have vaccines currently. Like it's crazy. And so it's completely preventable in that way. And I also think it's so cool that the vaccines are free and available to everybody under 26.
Yeah.
26 and under.
Yeah.
Like I think, how incredible is that? That we just happen to have.
just before I turned 26.
Nice.
So I happened to be the GP, and it was like a very lucky thing. And I was like, what? Why would I need that? And then a little bit of education, realizing it's like across the board useful. And I got my 3 free vaccine hits.
Me.
And I was stoked because it saved me a lot of money as well.
Yeah. Also, like when you think about it, it's also a vaccine against cancer, which is crazy because HPV causes a change in cells which can make them cancerous with anal cancer and cervical cancer and throat cancer. That's one.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so cool that we have a literal cancer vaccine that's available and free to young people. I just think that's so cool.
Very cool.
I'm very passionate about sex. Because when I was young, it was only available, I think I was like the first group of girls at my entire school who it was available to. Yeah, we were about like 12 years old and we got the first rollout and none of the boys had the vaccine. And I thought it was so interesting to learn later into my adult life doing sexual health that they were trying to initially sell it. They thought that parents wouldn't consent to their kids having a vaccine if it was to prevent STIs, but because of the proven links to cervical cancer, they'd be more receptive to anti-cancer vaccines for young girls. And so that's where it started, which is really interesting as like the rollout, trying to get it okay by parents. But I think it's cool now that we're at a stage where it's available to all genders and and to way more age groups for free as well.
Yeah.
And I got free movie tickets. That was the coolest thing about getting my HPV vaccines. I got movie tickets.
I don't even remember like those vaccines being discussed when I was at school. Like even like it was just something that was exclusively for like the girls, and it didn't even come up in conversation, which is so trippy to think that this whole time it could have been just as easily for everyone.
It was the same for me, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm a bit older than you guys, but it was like. All of the girls are going, we're not going to talk about it. They're all going into the hall. We're not going to talk about it. And we got to the hall, we didn't talk about it. We just saw needles and we were like, But it would have been good to know.
That's how I grew up knowing genital warts as opposed to genital herpes. I was told, or not told, but I think I grew up knowing genital warts were just on girls and genital herpes were just on boys. Like that's the misinformation that I grew up with.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, STIs were gendered as well. Yeah? And I think that was a lot of the misinformation that I grew up around with STIs.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a focus on like STI education when I was coming through school. It was more like this is how to have sex, rather than like the effects of like not practicing safe sex.
Yeah.
And what to do if said consequences happen. How
Like,
you can,
sex ed for me was in school was the how to roll a condom on a banana.
So,
And I was like,
And that's all you need to know.
and you passed.
Yeah, I had a real weird sexual education in schools where our chaplain ran us through her favourite positions, which was wild and so cool. So cool. I thought it was so awesome that she did that. But also, we had a really cool teacher who talked about porn addiction, which was so crazy, but she was really open about her own journey with it, and then wanted us to have that education of being able to like ethically consume porn and make our own decisions about what we're seeing, and then and then just like consuming it in a way that's like balanced, and we're supporting the acts and the people that we want to see on screen rather than things that like don't sit right with our hearts. It was really cool.
That's really cool.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I feel like I lucked out.
Yeah, totally. Because my sexual education, sexual health education.
Yeah.
This was a teacher, so none of us knew anything about sex at all. We were like year 9s or year 10s or something. We had a PE class, and this is the teacher. She's a sporto. She goes, "Okay, we're gonna learn about the anatomy today. What am I?" And then we were like, tree. And she goes, "No, I'm the." Oh, I'm gonna get it wrong. She said either I'm a uterus or I'm the fallopian tubes. And we were like,
Wow.
okay.
You had the I am a tree sexual health education.
And that was it.
And from there on, everyone walking down the street like this.
Sexwise has been around for 36 years now, and it was started as the Say No or Joe show back in 1991, I feel like. Yeah, it was started out of the Southern DHB and some health promoters down there, including Karen Elliott. And I think it's wicked. And we've been touring around all of Aotearoa, all the way from Balclutha up to Kerikeri since then. And we get to go around schools, we get to go around alt-eds, youth justice residences, care and protection units, young parents centres, which is for teen parents, Kura Kaupapa Māori, and other cool activity centres and fun places where youth might miss out on sexual health education because they've been out of school during the one term that it's often taught, or it's necessary for them to get a little extra support in learning about healthy relationships.
So the Sexwise program has a new device show every single year, which is cool, and we get a new team every single year. So the team is actually 2 teams of 4. So the 8 of them plus the 2 of us, we get to create a brand new device show based on certain sexual health topics.
We choose new topics every single year based on youth trends and kind of sex and healthy relationship culture that comes up. And so that could be reported heaps on the media. We could hear that from the youth themselves when they fill out the survey every single year. Or we talk to a lot of nurses, public health nurses in schools and regions across Aotearoa and try and get a really good gauge on what's happening in both the online sexual youth landscape as well as in person and things like that. So things that were new to us, because we can't just put in our experiences because we went through the schooling system ages ago.
Yeah, and it was a different world, a different time.
Yeah.
And because our beautiful, wonderful world is always changing, it's a good challenge for us because we have a fresh perspective every year.
Yeah.
And sometimes we learn things about what young people are up to because we're getting further and further away from being young people.
Oh yeah.
So we learn new things.
It's crazy. Like last year we did AI companions as one of our key topics. And I had no idea people even had AI girlfriends and boyfriends. But it's a thing and your youth are doing it. But trying to teach them how to teach, but also just kind of get them to question things is a lot of our role. But there are some topics that stay the same, there's always unintended pregnancy, always going to be STIs, and there's always kind of healthy relationships, learning about consent and avoiding abusive behaviours in relationships. But there's always new individual things that come up, especially for nudes at the moment and image-based abuse and stuff like that has been really interesting. Or deep fakes has come up a lot with AI. And just adapting to whatever's going on at the time. Ghosting has just stuck around for years and years in this program.
Ghosting
Learn
and
how to communicate.
And love bombing.
Love bombing.
Love bombing is a problem that comes up every
I feel
year.
like that is just a teenage symptom. I've got so many feelings.
And it's cool because we get to take these issues to the young people and see what they're actually thinking about it. So the way that the show is structured is that we meet these 4 young people and we see how they interact and we see what they're going through. Most of them have a problem or an issue that they're dealing with. And then it all gets to a point where it kind of all the issues come to a head and then the show ends. And so figuring out how to work out the problems and the different pathways that they have to take is up to the students, which is so awesome because the young people of our beautiful country are so awesome. They're so onto it. They're so smart. They they would teach us most of the time. All we need to do is take the content, give them that opportunity to speak about these things, because unfortunately, still today, these topics are still considered taboo, so we don't talk about them much. Our young people don't get opportunities to talk about them much. So that's the cool thing about this program, is that we're not going to talk about anything other than these things. So
I know, and I think it removes a bit of the whakama, because we're so confident when we talk about it, and that is the set priority, rather than listening to your teachers wax on about it. But I think it's so cool. Other theatre and education focus on really didactic messages, really telling you how to act and how these young people should react to situations, and trying to teach them morals. Whereas we're really interested in what the young people think, and doing peer-to-peer learning, because one of them is going to know where the sexual well-being Aotearoa, previously family planning, is in their town or their city, and then they can teach everybody else in their group. One of them's going to know that the sexual health nurse can provide condoms, or can do STI checks at the GP or something like that, and they all get to teach each other. And I think that's the coolest thing, is watching them each be experts in different topics and all be able to come together and be uplifted and educated. I just think it's so cool.
Yeah, that is very cool.
Yeah.
I have a question for Jake, only because he hasn't said anything. What is your most surprising thing about discussing these topics with Rangataki or Aotearoa?
It's always the jokesters in the room.
Yeah.
The ones who throw jokes and it sounds like they're trying to shut it down. But behind their joke, they're genuinely interested about what's going on.
Yeah.
That's their way of being engaged. And I think what's cool about our program is that we allow that. Because in a classroom setting, the jokester is seen as the troubled student or
Disruptive.
And so when we get young people who are they'll just scream out the most absurd things. I always go back to not challenging them on why they believe that, but trying to help them articulate why that's a thing that they think about.
Yeah.
For a lot of young people, they think about that because it's just what they know. But then you have the same young people on the other end of the spectrum who are they're so odd that they challenge each other. So that always surprises me. And I feel like the jokesters in the schools are they're low-key the fifth Sexwise member.
Yeah.
Because they're they're the ones that we kind of always have that unspoken relationship with, where it's you're throwing your jokes, I'm gonna meet you at your joke.
Yeah.
And then you have other students either join them or challenge them, and then the conversation comes to life.
Nice.
That always surprises me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you come to a school and you're all the students are sitting quiet. And there's always one jokester. One jokester, and you're
Jake, can you explain your theory on why we use humour in Sexwise?
This is something I heard Oscar Kaitley say. So we use humour in any form of storytelling where where it's heavy. We use humour because it gets them laughing, and while their mouths are open, then we slip in some truth. And it's more palatable that way.
Yeah, that's what they're just about, I think.
Yeah.
And it's not that these topics are heavy, it's just that they're foreign territory for some people. And I remember that feeling of I was the inexperienced one in my friend group, and so these people would be talking openly about their experiences, and first of all, I was inexperienced, so I didn't know what I was talking about. But when they would look to me, I was I don't know. It's just I've just never done it before. It's never been a topic in my house at home with my family, with other friends. And even like if it came on TV, which sex is on TV all the time, the TV would be turned off because we weren't allowed to talk about it.
No, for real.
Like for us, I can only speak as a Samoan. The reason why we don't speak about sex in the house is because the misinformation around STIs. Like I feel like because my parents grew up seeing all the bad information around STIs, the fear is that if I'm having sex young, then I'm contracting these things that they don't understand.
Yeah.
And that became the taboo. It was like, if you're not doing it, you're safe.
Yeah.
But I think what becomes more dangerous is that we are doing it, but we're not talking about it.
Yeah.
It's always the silent killers of everything.
Yeah.
So the adults will assume it's not being done because
So,
I'm trying to stamp on it, but really, of course, it is happening, and then we're not talking about it anyway, and then it just makes it even faster. And,
I think at the heart of it, that's what makes it a bit taboo. Like, all the other factors of like beliefs and stuff, but I think when when you're being thrown in the media and in the papers or this misinformation, that's when you're looking at, okay, I'm gonna stop my kid from contracting these things by making sure they don't,
I think that's why it's so cool. We go to see kids between ages 13, sometimes even 12, if it's relevant to their life experience, up to 17. Some people and teachers can question why we're seeing year 9s. And I think it's all about empowering them, right? I think the education that they will have on this topic is preventative for STIs and unintended pregnancy in a way that not acknowledging these parts of life and never educating our rangatahi on it is not. To educate is to empower, and that's what Sexwise is all about.
Got a question for you. I got a double-pronged question for you.
Sure.
Okay. Firstly, what is your what are some of your memories like? What was your experience in like sex ed? And also, you are joining us on tour for the first time this year. So exciting! What are you excited about?
Yeah. So my memories are in relation to the fact that I was like born into a church environment, and so like attitudes towards sex in that environment were very much what we were talking about. It was like, it's on TV, turn it off, it's not happening, da 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 da. And then at the school I was at, it was kind of what Jake was describing of like, put the condom on the banana and boom, you're all good. So, and I'm sure things have changed and progressed since then, but I think one of the reasons I'm most kind of excited for the Sexwise tour is because it brings together both like education as empowerment, like you were saying, but also like theatre and comedy and humour. Because even though it's not like a dark topic or like it doesn't need to be a scary topic, I think any kind of information is more enjoyable and processed when it has the levity to it. And it's more fun for the person like transmitting that information as well. Like if we were to stand up and give like facts and figures, that that's the teacher's kind of realm, but we get to do something different. We get to do something a bit more interactive, and I think I'm really excited to sort of like share knowledge that maybe I don't feel I got the benefit of when I was younger, whilst also doing a form of art that I am obsessed with. So it's just a great marriage of things.
Cool.
Especially, I'm very fascinated with the facilitation aspect. I think like what I know of it so far is that's like real. That's where the kind of meat happens. Like that's where the exciting stuff kind of happens. And I love a kid that will shout out. I love that. I'll give it right back. Or even better, you just listen to them and then ask them. I find questions that they've actually brought up, and you just kind of take them seriously. And the more you listen, the more they'll give you to work with.
I genuinely think that everybody needs to see the Sexwise program, no matter what age you are, because the way it's formatted is so clever. 35-year-old program, they've really got it down to a T. And like exactly what you were saying, the information is so much more digestible when it's fun and when it's interactive and when you know that you have a say. And yeah, I think that everybody should know that they should have a say in these topics. If you don't know anything about it, how are you gonna know about it if you don't try? You know, and I feel for the people that don't have that window of opportunity. But my biggest wish for everyone in the world is that they feel empowered to find out about it and talk about it, and that nothing can shame them, and everything is fine, and stigma is non-existent anymore. That's my wish.
Well, there's great ways to start, right? If you don't have a supportive friend group who you can discuss like sex with, or you don't feel comfortable talking to your GP, that the Burnett Foundation's website and their in-depth on STIs is incredible. Just the facts is such a good website to go to for STI facts. I mean, there's so many different websites, like the Light Project talks about pornography in youth. And I think there's even specialized for autism and pornography, or for explaining pornography to your youth. There's so many resources out there, and it's so cool. Sexual Wellbeing Aotearoa is just like the best place to go regardless. And I think, there's heaps of information, and the danger that we run, and which is why we have to go into these schools a lot of the time, is most of these rangatahi, their education is now coming from pornography, right? They're either not asking people, asking friends, or searching for it in porn, which, as we know, is filled with its own sexism and racism and
so when you feel that's your diet, when you are in a relationship, you will inevitably, some of the residual effects of watching that as your diet will come out into relationships. And it's like, it can be quite damaging, as we know. So like, if you have the resources there to sort of like see what you're getting and kind of like dissect it in a non-judgmental of self way, then that's all you need. Like, that's really, really huge.
There's so many places to go to educate yourself, and I feel like if you're having sex, get educated. It's so interesting. The responses that we get from kids are so incredibly varied because we go to such different places around Aotearoa that the kids have different levels of education on sexual health and healthy relationships. For some of them, they're like, I knew everything already. And I'm like, I'm sure you got something. But like, I think it's really interesting. About 10 years ago, one of the most impactful stories for me was one of the young people down in Southland came out to a Sexwise facilitator. It was the first time they'd come out to anybody, and they had never met another rainbow or takatapu person in their life. And they came out to one of the facilitators who was straight, and so they drove another team all the way across from South Canterbury, all the way down to meet this kid, just so that they could have one conversation. I think it's the most gorgeous thing about our project. But I think, it's that like, being able to, like, if you can see it, you can be it. I think people talk, that's the phrase, And I think for a lot of our rainbow community, it's quite empowering to have rainbow sexual health education, but also to see these people as adults and flourishing and being really confident to talk about sex and having positive experiences as well is really huge. But that's just one of the responses.
That's awesome. I didn't know that story. That's lovely.
That's really cool.
This is one of the things about the job, one of the funnier things about the job is that we know going into a school on any given date that we won't see the penny drop straight away. And one of my favourite things about going in is we get there and it's like first period or whatever, and everybody hates us. They don't want to watch our stupid show. They don't want to have anything to do with this. But at the end of the day, they're like, we're having this full-on conversation about everything. That's my favourite thing. And it's not feedback per se, but you can just see the difference when somebody is given an opportunity to just be in a judgment-free zone and just talk about whatever they want. And sometimes there'd be particular areas that hold certain beliefs, and so they want to test those beliefs out and discuss them and dissect them a little bit and see is there anything else out there. And those are my favourite things.
There was one young boy in a youth justice residence last year that we met, and we were talking about a character who had who thought they were pregnant, and their baby daddy had ghosted them, and we were asking, does she need to tell him that she was ever pregnant, and having this discussion with the boys, which I thought was really interesting regardless. But there was like a really big boy in there who like held like a little bit of respect between everybody, and then suddenly piped up out of nowhere, well, it's her body, it's her choice, she can choose if she wants to tell anyone. And I was just like, let's go. I was so proud. I was so like, it was so cool. Like, I think sometimes we bring our own judgments into what the kids might know or how they might feel in certain areas, and so it's always delightful to see, you know, to be surprised. In those kind of spaces. And yeah, you could see all of the other boys changing their minds because somebody that they respected was so strong in that belief, and they might have been saying things that were to the contrary earlier in the day or being a bit disrespectful, and it was just really cool. It was a really cool moment. Yeah.
That's why I think it's so important to just talk about it. If you're brave enough to, if you're comfortable enough to, just talk about it, because you never know. Somebody might need to hear that. Somebody might need to. Maybe somebody's never heard that before, and it makes them go, "Oh, I've been thinking this certain way my whole
I
entire
just couldn't
life."
articulate it. Maybe, or like,
Yeah. Just say the thing. We say that a lot. Just say the thing.
My favorite feedback that happens on tour, and it happens like in every school, is when it's always the quiet one who like doesn't seem engaged. You know, there's always those students. It's when they come up to you like year after and still speak to you as the character, and they tell you off. They tell you off. That's my favorite feedback. Yeah. As much as we go like, oh, I'm the actor, that's the character I played. They're like, no, you did that thing, and that was your friend. Like, for me, that's like my favorite kind of feedback. Because they'll never write it down. And it's sad that they don't, because it's really useful if they do. But to get that live feedback, and it happens in like so many schools. Kids will like
the conviction,
they'll just come up to you.
They're really.
You're the character. Like they saw you do this thing, and they just like, that was your friend. Like, how could you do that to me? You know.
I mean, that's what we hope for, right? Is that they have that conversation with a friend that pulls their head in, and you know, they change their behaviour unless people get harmed.
Well, some of my favorite feedback that we've read when we got it is the teacher saying that days later they still hear young people discussing the program. Like, they'll go away and come back and be like, break it down even more, and they'll unpack it in another way. Like, that's pretty cool, because that's the point. Like, our job is just to provoke the conversation, provoke it, normalize it. And I think sometimes we measure the success of our work by the feedback that we get, and that's incorrect. I think the success of our work is always unseen. It's that silent, you know. Kids are talking about it, and we're going back, and they recognize the program when it's there. So when they get to the workshop part, you can always see the experts of the workshop. And they're the ones who are like, okay guys, we're gonna go to it. They're like, hold on, I'll give the instructions. Like for me, that measures the success of the outcome.
My other favourite piece of feedback doesn't come from the rangatahi but kaiako, and it's when they tell us, especially in old ed settings, that they don't have any other form of sexual health education. And that might be just because they don't have the staff to be able to teach it, they don't have the expertise, the resources, or that their young people are in their facility for too short periods of time to actually be able to delve into that, or they're not the right age group to be able to teach the RSE curriculum as it currently is. which is back in the 2007 version and should be better. Anyway, the 2017 version was great and also involved pornography, a key part of sexual health education. Hi, why would you remove it? I just have so many questions. Anyway. But so maybe they don't have the time or the resources or the teaching ability, or maybe they don't have the young people at the right stage to be able to teach the RSE curriculum in its prescribed year, but they just have no other form of sexual health education. And I feel heartbroken because we're only in there in a very small group, maybe 2 hours. And so I feel very, very sad but very privileged that we are able to share so much about so many different STIs and sexual health issues and healthy relationships issues to these young people who otherwise are going into the world with no education on this subject.
Just crazy, eh? 'Cause,
Yeah.
and I might be wrong on the hours, but I think I heard that sexual education and positive relationship criteria is 10 hours. And if we take up 2 hours of that in our program, they have only 8 hours left. Dale! He stopped.
It worked.
Hey, thanks, team. This has been cool. We are from the Theatre and Health Education Trust. We run a program called Sexwise. And if you are a teacher, if you're a parent, or if you have a group of young people who you'd like us to travel to all around Aotearoa, it doesn't matter where you are, to come deliver this program, we'd love to see you and get in touch with the program Sexwise. Our website is sexwise.nz.